Hello, my name is Mitchell Batschelett, one of the authors of the manuscript entitled Plasticity in the Developing Brain, Neurophysiological Basis for Lesion-Induced Motor Reorganization, recently published in Brain Communication. And today I will be briefly walking you through our project. So a bit of broad background: pediatric developing brains are much better at reorganizing and regaining function following various types of brain injury than their adult counterparts, especially following injury to the motor cortex. Transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS, is able to easily visualize this reorganization and aid in the understanding and study of the underlying mechanistic principles driving this reorganization. And this is due to its non-invasive nature, its ability to directly probe motor cortex physiology, and its spatial resolution with the help of neuronavigation techniques. Now, moving on to the development of the motor system, up until about 2 years of age, we possess these fast and direct ipsilateral motor cortex projections that collaterally regress following unaltered motor cortex development. And this is in addition to the more commonly known contralateral projections. Now, injury to the developing motor cortex can cause corticomotor reorganization in a couple ways. The first being intrahemispheric reorganization, where there's a lesion and then function is acquired by juxtalesional cortices. Pictured here is the premotor and supplementary motor. And these areas develop descending axons, which then innervate contralateral peripheral muscle. A second reorganization type is interhemispheric reorganization, where a lesion occurs and function is shifted to a contralateral hemisphere, where this contralesional hemisphere develops contralateral and ipsilateral projections. However, the exact acquisition point of function from the lesion hemisphere is not well known. There are a few factors known to drive interhemispheric reorganization, such as the timing of the lesion, the size of the lesion, and the location. However, the role of lesion etiology on resulting reorganization is not known. Additionally, the functional consequences of different reorganization patterns is unclear. With this in mind, we had three hypotheses. The first being that cortical real estate would be shared following interhemispheric reorganization. The second being that acquired injuries would be more likely to cause interhemispheric reorganization than developmental lesions. And the third being that better functional outcomes would be associated with intrahemispheric reorganization and developmental lesions. So we identified 52 patients with reorganized motor cortex, and this was visualized using corticomotor maps generated from TMS sessions. We pulled different data points for each patient, namely grasp function, which was whether or not the patient could successfully grasp an object with their affected hand. We also calculated the center of gravity for each motor cortex using an MEP weighted average. We tested for mean differences in the distance between normally and reorganized center of gravities between the interhemispheric and intrahemispheric groups. We also tested for an effect of injury etiology on resulting reorganization and hand function. And finally, we tested for an effect of reorganization pattern on hand function. For the results, we found that the distances between normally located and reorganized motor cortices was significantly shorter for interhemispheric reorganization, and these motor cortex overlapped. As you can see here, this both contralateral and the ipsilateral motor cortices overlapped, whereas here, when this was transposed in a subject with intrahemispheric reorganization, there was still quite a bit of distance between those two. Also, we found that acquired injuries were more likely to cause interhemispheric reorganization than developmental disorders, and also that interhemispheric reorganization and acquired injuries were both independently associated with worse outcomes than their respective counterparts. So this is the first study to show that interhemispheric reorganization results in shared cortical real estate in contralesional hemisphere. Also, the effect of injury etiology on reorganization is likely reflective of the nature of these lesions, where developmental lesions are most commonly associated with neuromigratory deficits, and this still allows for the maintenance of activity-dependent development of contralateral innervation, which allows these ipsilateral projections to regress as would be normally. And also, consistent with other investigators, the polar function associated with interhemispheric Reorganization is likely due to the involvement of white matter tracts in the injury. As you can see here, there is no connection of this cortex to white matter tract, resulting in significant asymmetry in the descending white matter tracts. Ultimately, these results can hopefully help inform and formulate reorganization-specific therapies aimed at optimizing functional recovery. Special thank you to the Rhodes College Le Bonheur Children's Hospital Summer Plus Research Fellowship for making this research possible.